Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. My name is Kelly, and I'm being joined by Phil and David and Jenny today. You can certainly learn more about us and see our shining faces if you're looking at this on a podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can already see us. Hello. But you can go to unfilteredvetdiscussions.com. We are also on social media of your preference, and as well as many podcasts, downstreaming opportunities. So today we are leaping into the fray of generational issues and attitudes around it. Jenny, do you want to expound on that a little bit more?
Yes. So I think we all know that we have many generations in the workplace now. There are still some, um, uh, oh gosh, I just forgot the oldest, not the oldest generation, but the oldest one in the workplace. And my parents, boomers. My brain just stopped working. So we have boomers, we have Gen Xers, we have millennials, we have Gen Z, and now we even have some of the even younger, which I don't know if they've named this generation yet,
Gen
but
Alpha.
Question.
Gen Alpha. Okay, well, that just makes them sound like they're in charge. But I know that's the generation that my youngest is a part of, or I'm sorry, my oldest is a part of. And so we're seeing more of these generations coming in. And I guess Phil and I were talking before about, generations, and we've mentioned it very briefly in some of the conversations that we've had before. And it's always been like at the end of a conversation, we haven't been able to expand on it. But what I have seen is older generations constantly blaming younger generations for problems. And I can say that this is true of the traditionalists to the boomers. The traditionalists were the World War II generation. They fought hard for everything. They were just this amazing generation, made plenty of sacrifices, and they were just perfect. And then come along the boomers, and you've got Woodstock and draft dodging and, this whole me generation. And the traditionalists were like, what is wrong with these guys? And then you get down to the Gen Xers, and that's my generation. And we were like, listening to grunge music and playing video games. And, we were never going to come out of our parents' basement. And then you got the millennials who were the ones, rewards for all. And, they get, participation ribbons and helicopter parents. And then you get the Gen Z, which is like millennials on steroids. And I guess my point is every generation has to overcome these stereotypes, right? And maybe we should just stop saying, oh, this is the worst worker because they're a Gen Z. They don't know how to work. I'm giving up on this generation because I've heard that. I've heard that even from my own millennials. And I'm like, you know what? A while ago, we were going to give up on you, you know? And I think people still say millennials like it's a bad word, but the reality of it is millennials are in their 40s. Like we need to stop blaming them for everything. So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
That's a big kettle of fish. But you're right.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about anything small here. Come on.
No, and why? It's boring.
The older generation always projects the problems on the next one, and they don't work, and they slacken, and can't rely on them, and question their work ethic. And I hear it too from the practice owners and the managers that I work with when we're valuing their practice, the frustration. Or I found one not like the rest of her generation. She's great, whether it's an associate, a tech, or anyone. And I'm on the cusp between the boomers, and I'm right in between. So I see both in me. But now I'm creeping into being in the older generation and not the younger.
But it goes both ways. I mean, you're talking about the older generation looking down the food chain to the younger generations and saying they're not like me and therefore it's wrong. But I've seen it the other way. The younger generations looking upstream at people and going, they're holding me back. They polluted the pond. They made my chances less than I could have, or less than they could have because of their selfish decisions. right? So I see it flowing back and forth both ways, down the generations, up the generations. And really, maybe we should start working together, like Jenny, like you said, like
What?
why do we actually have to take out the blame card today? I mean, I'm throwing it out there.
Well, and so I would say that's what, Jenny and I were talking about is, I work in a hospital with, multiple different generations, and the majority of everybody works their ass off and works together, and so the amazing thing that we all have in common is that we're all human beings, and we all have a desire to be heard. We have a desire to feel like we matter. When we can put ourselves in a position to understand where the other one is coming from, magically all of those things tend to dissipate, and we end up being on a more level playing field. And it is fascinating to, that the curse of knowledge, or what have you. And I mean, we see it not just being older, but being more experienced in a position. Somebody somebody new comes in and it's like, oh, how can they not know how to run a fecal or whatever. It's like, you remember what you were like 10 years ago? I remember what I was like. I didn't, I wouldn't have hired 20-year-old me. you know and so, but just, saying is, wow, could we just take a moment to remember what that experience was like, or what this was like? And hey, maybe, shocker, like maybe because I did it, it wasn't the right way to do it, and just because I worked, my first, couple of years, like 60, 70 hours a week, which by the way, ended me up in a treatment center. But maybe, shockingly, maybe that's not the way that it goes. And one thing, there's a guy, Gary, I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk. He's on LinkedIn. There's one thing that he says that really resonates with me, and he's like, if you own the company, there isn't another person in that company that's going to care about that company as much as you.
Right.
And he's like, that's totally okay. Like, that's it. And so, honoring that, what can I do to make that experience as enriching as I can, to have somebody when they choose to come here to work, what can we do? And, we always talk about those big picture concepts, but that's the thing that I've seen. It's just like on a micro level, I just haven't seen things from my kids, from the younger, team members that I work with, that are any different than anything that I talk about with people that are, in their 40s and 50s. Yeah, Dave.
So that raises the question I have, and I'm not in practice, I'm the outside looking in, but for both of you, are these generational issues coming up when there's friction in the team? Because from what, Phil, you were just saying, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and being appreciated, being a valued team member, if that's happening, then the generation differences are irrelevant. They only become, what I'm hearing, potentially relevant when there's conflicts within the culture or personalities, workflow, team efficiencies, organization, leadership, lack of leadership. Is that what highlights then these differences? And then the stereotypes come into play.
It's easy pickings. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, so in my practice, I have boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. And the biggest, I guess, issue that comes up is when one of them says, well, how come you don't know how to do this? Like what Phil was saying, right? Like, how come you don't know how to run a fecal? But it's more my younger kids, well, what do you mean you don't know how to attach this, in a computer? And my, my boomers who are very, like, they don't like the computer. And they're like, well, do you know how to, I don't know. Well, one of my team members, she pulls horses, and she says, well, do you know how to hook an Edener? And the other person will be like, well, I don't even know what an evener is. And she's like, exactly. Like everybody knows what they know. And so instead of saying, well, why don't you know how to do this with kind of disdain, just say, oh, I'd be happy to teach you. And I do agree with you, David, that a lot of these issues do come up when there isn't free communication. When people feel that if they speak up, they're going to be judged, they're going to be shamed, they're going to be blamed, they're going to, be made to feel less than. And I think that when you have open communication, it allows us to kind of giggle at ourselves for the things that we don't know, because I can tease the Gen Zers because they don't know how to spell, but they haven't needed to. Realistically, their schooling, what they've learned is totally different. We say, oh, they don't know how to read cursive. First of all of my kids have been taught cursive, so yay for them. But you're right. Maybe they don't know how to read cursive. And I think Cody might say, so what? So what? You don't know how to read an X-ray. We have people who can do that for us. So there are different things. Do I yes, do I think it's important that we know our history? Absolutely. Do I think that it's important that we embrace change as it comes? Absolutely. I think the big thing is I have a talk that I do that's called Rewards for All. And it's all about how to reward your team in ways other than just 401k, profit sharing, insurance. Okay. And it's funny because I'll see the older people and they'll be like, oh, nobody ever thanked me for working. Nobody ever thanked me for staying late. Nobody ever, and I have a slide that says, stop blaming the millennials. Everybody likes to be told thank you. Everybody likes to get a thank you card. I don't care if you're 102 or if you're 5 years old. It is really nice to be told, hey, you did a great job. So I don't think we really need to blame any one generation for the need to start just being nice to each other and saying thank you. Even if it is thank you for just doing your job. But it's nice to be appreciated. And we need to start really looking at, like what you guys said, we're all human and we all have these needs. So instead of putting everybody in these little boxes and saying all Gen Zers can't work, all millennials are lazy and all they want to do is have fun, all Gen Xers hate to communicate, okay, maybe there are some similarities, but the reality is we're all a product of many things, where we're at in siblings, oldest, youngest, middle, all of that, what kind of household we were raised in, what kind of socioeconomic status were we raised in. There's so many other things that surpass your generation. And I think we need to start looking at those.
But I think it starts, like what I'm hearing you guys say is when people start throwing out the blame, it's because there's a lack of something within. I'm blaming somebody because I'm not getting what they got.
What I want. Yeah.
Right? What I want. It's like those toddler rules, those, little kid. Well, it is, you've got the toy and I want that toy. So I'm going to pitch a fit so that you pay attention to me so I can have the toy. Right? Or it's like my dogs, my 11-pounder absolutely has FOMO if I start petting the 55-pounder. And she just weasels her way right in my lap, like, yeah, no, you're not leaving me out, bitch. And I'm like, yeah, apparently I'm not, right? But she corrects the action. She doesn't blame the bigger one. She just is like, yeah, it ain't working, and just muscles right in there, right? But as humans, we're not following the dog rules, apparently. We just instead blame to say, pay attention to me in a negative way versus saying, hey, I feel a little left out here. Maybe it requires being a little vulnerable, a little transparent, communicating your needs. But those aren't always skill sets we're taught either.
Very true.
Yeah. Okay. And we have a wonderful quirk in our, our brains where we tend to just remember, the really great stuff. It's just like, Al Bundy, with 5 touchdowns, scoring for, for Polk High or whatever it was, is as time goes on, we're much better than we were. And things were worse than, is that it's not, we just have a mixed up sense of what things were like. And what's fascinating, so when I was taking one of my positive psychology certifications, there was a quote, and it said something to the effect of, the students are lazy, they're rebellious, they don't honor tradition, they don't know history, and they have these liberal ideas of everything. And the quote was from ancient Greece.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what David was saying. This is the old crusties are going to be old crusties, and young we're going to be, and it doesn't matter if it's 2,000 years ago, it was 50 years ago. Is that it? And can we just, and in honoring that history, can we, like, if we're in the old crusty seat where I'm sliding into, like, can I say, huh, interesting? Can I be curious and not judgmental, and say, huh, what was, is it possible, like, my memory of how I grew up and the things I went through weren't maybe exactly the lens through which I'm viewing this? And, like, what is it like to grow up now? I mean, I'll tell you one thing, I sure as hell didn't have to worry about every embarrassing thing that I ever did being all over social media. I mean, can you, like, the bear, like, the walls that have to go up to create that? I mean, that's
a life that's
like,
being recorded.
I just want to get, yeah, I mean, I just, I genuinely just want to give these kids, give them a hug. Like, I didn't, thank God I didn't have to deal with that, because I don't know what I don't know if I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. But just, I think that's that's just generally the thing, is that the thing that we do share is that humanness. And the external factors obviously change our perception through some of that, but at its core is just empathy and understanding. And I know we raise that flag a lot, but it comes back to that very very often. So
And that means for yourself too, not just for others. I just want to add that in there. So in case anybody's listening and thinking they have to be that for others, well, it starts with you, right?
It's just remembering a shared humanity. While we're recording this, the Olympics are coming on, or are on, and it's one of those things that you watch the Olympics and you realize how small our world is in many ways, and you see the joy and you see the camaraderie, and you see, yes, they're competing, but they're also excited for each other. And I think that it's a beautiful thing to remember that maybe somebody else has that toy and you really want it, but there's another toy out there for you and you can get that one. And we don't all have to act like big toddlers, but we can just remember that we all have that humanity and we all have those needs. And right, we do talk about this a lot, but I think it just really rubs me the wrong way when people blame generations and say, oh, you're this generation, you should know better. Or, oh, you're this generation, you're never going to work as hard as me. I hire for the personality. I don't hire based on age, which is actually illegal. Based on gender, based on anything like that. Like, you got to be real careful. But I don't look at somebody and say, oh, that's a kid, they're not going to work. Some of my hardest workers are in their 40s. Some of my hardest workers are in their 30s. Some of my hardest workers are in their 20s. And, and now I've got a couple of little 19-year-olds that I've hired, which make me feel even older, but they're working good. They're working hard. It's about the personality and the person and not about their generation. Like, we can't make generalized assumptions, because I can easily say, yes, I have some traits of a Gen X, and there are some traits that I don't have as a Gen X, although we are the perfect generation. Just ask us. But any Gen X will be like, oh yeah, we can communicate with everybody. We're fantastic. Of course, we don't like social engagements, but that's okay. But I do think that it's just a matter of remembering that everybody is human and just be nice, be kind to each other, right? Like, it's not that hard. But instead of blaming somebody for not knowing, saying, hey, would you like me to teach you how to do that? When I don't know how to do something on a computer, I immediately go to my younger ones and I'm like, or my kids, I'll go to my kids and I'm like, guys, I can't get my Zoom to work. Help me. Or I can't figure out this PowerPoint. And my kids are like, oh, well, mom, and it's done. And it's beautiful because they know these things. They're ingrained. And I remember before computers. So I didn't grow, to what Phil was saying, we didn't grow up this way. So have a little respect and a little love for everybody.
Yeah.
And
One of the best things I learned in recovery was, if I've got my finger pointed blaming at you,
Yeah.
I got three
pointing back.
pointing back at me. And that I was, those little quip thing. I mean, it's really like, if I lean into something, I've got to ask myself, like, why, what is it in me that is driving that desire to blame, not curiosity or how, what can we do better, but like, you're the reason this is da, 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 da. And so just anyway,
That's that self-awareness, because if you're reacting, you're not aware you're doing it. And so you do need that level of awareness, which brings us back to where we started. Are we aware when we're judging somebody generationally?
Yeah.
Because once we have that awareness, then we can, whoa, step back, three pointing at me.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up here for today. Hopefully we left you with lots of things to ponder. Start looking.
It boils down to just be self-aware.
Right?
Okay, done. Drop the mic.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do. Don't, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Right.
How about if we just be
It's like
kind and don't
the four
judge?
agreements. Yeah. Don't take anything personally. That's what he says in that. It's like, just do that.
Easy.
Just do that.
It's easy. Yeah. Flip the switch.
All right. We will catch you all later on Unfiltered Vet Discussions. Thank you and have a great day.